You're good to go.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chris. All right. I'd like to call to order the Finance Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 26, 2023. It's 1:02 p.m. and we are live on a digital platform. And I will put my glasses back on to call the roll. Present here from City Council, we have Randy Allison, Eric Biter, and myself, Liz Mealy, from the Finance Committee, as well as Bonnie Katz and John Mackey from the full body of council. From the administration, I see Peg Woodring, Tracy Rash from Finance, Molly Steele Shrimp from HR, Justin Snyder from the Police Department, Chris Black from IT, Derek Slaughter from the Mayor's Office, and then I see Kim Stank, Justin Bell, and Chris Doherty. And I want to say that some of you all are from the auditors, and Chris, I know, is here for the JBOS resolution. Am I accurate in saying that?
Yes.
Mayor? Okay. All right.
And John will be joining us. He was planning on it. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Okay. Then Mayor Slaughter, do you want to rearrange things at all? Would you like to take item number 2 first and then move on to the audit review, or should we start with the audit review?
I think we stay with the audit. That's fine with me. I think we're good.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Yeah, especially since we're still waiting on John. I wasn't thinking there. Okay. All right. Then let's kick it off with item number 1. We have 4 items on our agenda today and 3 items on which we won't be taking action, but anyway, action items on the agenda. Item number 1 is an audit for the 2019 audit. Mayor Slaughter, Ms. Rash, I don't know who wants to lead it off.
I can lead it off. And yes, good afternoon, Councilwoman Mealy, members of the Finance Committee. As you've been working through our audit reports for a long while now, Zelenkowski Axelrod is the one that we went with. And so Kim Stank and Justin Bell are here to go over the 2019 audit reports. Tracy, of course, is on as well and can speak to from the city side of things if there's questions for her. But I think, and Tracy, correct me, I think we just go right to Kim and Justin and let them give an overview and then answer any questions that there may be from council, if you're okay with that, Councilwoman Mealy.
Yep. Sure.
Okay, Kim and Justin, it's all yours then.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having us. So you have already been presented with draft of those financial statements, 2 statements. One is your financials, the other one is your single audit report. I kind of want to start a little backwards, I guess. Going into your single audit report, there is a finding, and I don't know, am I allowed to share screen?
I don't have a beef with that. Mayor Slaughter, is that a problem for you?
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Just
It's,
a moment. Just
Okay,
a moment. I'll get you set up.
Okay.
Who's is it?
Thank you.
Ms. Stank that's talking?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes it's easier to see it, and if you can't, that's fine
Nope,
too. I
that's
can
fine. No,
just
that's fine. I
direct you
just need
to
to
it.
make you co-host. That's all. Your share
Okay.
screen should be green now.
There we go. All righty. I'm going to start off with the single audit, and when we go into this finding, the biggest part of it that I would just kind of want to point out to you is the cause, which, as you guys know, there's been a lot of turnover in management as well as the accounting positions. There's internal control issues. There's investigations with the state and federal agencies, as well as the audits of the financial statements of River Valley Transit and the Williamsport Parking Authority have not been available. So this is the finding that we are issuing, and this is kind of leading into the actual opinions of the financial statements. And this flipped it over to the financial statement opinion, and based on the information that has been provided to us, as well as at this point, the management representation letter can't really be signed and by anybody there because management at the time is no longer available to sign a management rep letter. So this has led us to a basis of a disclaimer of opinion, and in the basis of disclaimer opinion, similar language talks about that. So that's kind of where we're at with the financials overall. We are issuing a a disclaimer of an opinion on the financial statements. And, you can go into that and look at how that how we kind of came to that conclusion. Overall, we've put together the financial statements. That don't know how comfortable we are 100% with the financial statements overall, just based on information that has been provided. So, and that's really in the financial statements themselves what I wanted to show you. So, questions from you?
So help me here. I understand that we're getting a not clean opinion, that you're disclaiming any sort of responsibility for auditing our financial statements, which is fine. But you were unable to audit either the parking authority or RVT full stop for the 2019 year?
We were not engaged to audit them. They have been engaged, I'm assuming, by other auditors.
Okay, and we do not need to in any way marry those auditing statements via you with your assistant. Do you understand what I'm saying? I believe for the 2019 budget year, we're still presenting a single audit, correct?
Well, a single audit is an audit over federal funds, but right. Those are components of your overall entity. So they should be included in your audit as well. And kind of going into kind of where do we see this going? I think, Tracy's done an awesome job, and it's great that you have hired her. So she's done a lot of cleanup. I do see that the next couple years will continue to be a disclaimer of an opinion. I do see a light at the end of the tunnel. So we are hoping for 2023 to actually kind of get out of this, and it will really depend on the results of those pending investigations, as well as some other cleanup that she is working on. But we are hoping that the 2023 will pull us into at least a better opinion. At that point, we'll kind of have a better idea of the financial status.
Okay. I guess what I'm asking is, we are in need we're in need of audits just to be compliant with a variety of federal and state regulations in terms of grant monies that we receive. Does this qualify as the audit that we would need? Granted, the opinion is not the one that we would want, and we all knew that that was likely coming. But if it doesn't summarize the total, if it doesn't pull in the total government entity of RVT and the city and the parking authority, does that meet? And Tracy, perhaps you're the better one to answer this question. Does this meet the requirement, and will the upcoming next 3 audit years, I suppose, 2020, 21, and 22, will those meet the requirements that we need them to meet to submit them to our federal and state partners in some of our ongoing grants?
Kim, do you want me to answer that? Okay. Okay. So, the fact that the parking authority is not included in our audit won't have any effect on us at all. They're in the process. I do know from working with RVT that they are in the process of preparing their 2019 audit, and they have certain reporting requirements just like we have, but their audit will satisfy those requirements, and then ours will be used to try to satisfy ours. Whether this will satisfy federal and state partners, it's what we have. And they know we've been in constant communication with all those partners, telling them and explaining to them that we're moving forward. That's why I want to try to work as quickly as possible to get through these years, to get to the point where we're handing them something good. So does that answer your question?
I guess so. I guess I'm just asking if it seems to me like we need to, in some way or another, be presenting a complete package with RVT and the city for those years. Is it sufficient to basically staple the two together and pass them on, or do we need to?
No. Governments are allowed to present what's called primary government financial statements that don't include component units. So that refers specifically to the parking authority in this instance. With respect to RVT, you're right, it's a problem. We don't have that fund information in the city's financial statements, but RVT issues their own separate audit report as well.
Right.
So that will satisfy their federal and state partners for their purposes. So I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty that we're fine, but I think what Zelenkovsky Axelrod has produced, it will satisfy to the extent that we can those partners.
Okay. Understood. Anyway, I think I sort of jumped the gun here. Let me digest that information. Eric, I think you technically get first shot at all of this info. Lucky you. So what would you like to ask?
And to unmute myself there. I didn't get a huge opportunity to look through this. We got this morning. But what I would like to really understand, obviously we put off the sale of City Hall last meeting to wait for these. What is it in these audits that is so specific that we needed to wait for that? And being that I have not looked at a city audit before, can you please give me the 10,000 and 50,000 foot view of what I should be understanding from this? Obviously, the investigations, things like that are important, but where does all that come into play with how we currently stand?
Sure. So a little bit easier. I'll kind of talk auditing in general, kind of auditing 101 maybe. When you're going through your financial statements, obviously the very first thing is the opinion. We've already touched upon the opinion, and then it'll go into, and in this case, we don't have a management's discussion analysis. We talked it over. We didn't feel like it would be a relevant information to put in there, so we didn't take the time to have management work on that. And then it goes into the actual statements themselves. The first two statements are entity-wide statements, almost as similar to a business where you're full accruals, where your pension's included, all your debts included, your capital assets are included. Then it flips into your fund level statements. Typically, your general fund is the operating fund of the city, and that's mainly where all the ins and outs, the day-to-day operations of that city are run through. You also have several other funds within those, including where some of your federal money is running through, which includes your home program, your CDBG program. You do have capital projects as a fund also. So you can see the ins and outs. You have a balance sheet, but those balance sheets don't include your long-term assets or long-term liabilities. And then it goes into your footnotes describing the entity itself, as well as significant areas within those financials. Then at the end, it'll go into your RSI, your required supplementary information. There's some pension OPEB information in there. So that's kind of the basic financial statements in a quick overall. As we said before, Tracy's done a great job, but what we don't know is what we don't know in these statements. So, were all the accruals booked? Probably not. Were all the revenues booked? Probably not. To be honest, the first day that we went in and met with the former finance person, there literally was a table with stacks and stacks of invoices, and this is prior to when Tracy was in there. And we know after she's dug for months through those things that there were things related to many prior years, both positive and negative. So these financial statements have some of the activity, but I don't believe that they have all of the activity for that year. Does that help?
It does. You answered that part of the question. And then Mayor Slaughter, if you could just elaborate a little bit more as to why you felt it was as necessary to push off the sale of the building for us to get this information. I don't know if there was something in there that you were expecting or something that you wanted us to see beforehand.
No, it was actually brought to me, and they said the audits were coming in 2 weeks, and they asked if I had any issues with moving in 2 weeks. And I talked to Chris and John and their team, and they didn't. I didn't. I thought, actually, I was under the impression that as council starts to want to see more of a financial picture, that they wanted to hear about the audits prior to any decisions moving forward. But to Kim's point, we won't know certain things for a while. So, to get a full financial picture, I know we talked about this a little bit in ERC. That's going to be down the road. There's a lot of variables right now that we don't know. We won't know for a while. But at least, again, from what I was understanding, council wanted to hear the 2019, ask Kim and Justin, Tracy questions before making any decisions. So at least you'll have the 2019. Granted, you don't have the 2020 to 22 yet, but you'll have this one and you'll be able to digest this a little bit. If there's any financial related questions before going into Thursday nights with City Council. To me, whether it happened 2 weeks ago or this week, I didn't have a strong opinion one way or the other than to say we knew this was coming this week. So I thought it was sort of the will of council, but if I misunderstood that, then my apologies. But I didn't have, again, one way or the other than to get more financial information to you all.
Mhm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't anything, but I appreciate that.
Got it. Yeah, so I think just to elaborate for a second on part of the basis of what Eric's asking. Eric, I think all of us, I too haven't seen an audit since we reviewed 2018's, so it's been a minute for me as well. And not having received any of this documentation until this morning at 9:30 a.m. And then, of course, by that point, I already had several things booked into the morning that had to happen. I haven't really had what I would call an adequate amount of time to review this and try and refamiliarize myself with the documentation. So while I appreciate the opportunity to review the audit in the Finance Committee with only basically a half an hour's review time under my belt for the entire audit, I don't know that I feel confident that I will be covering all the materials that I need to cover all the questions that I might have. Hopefully I can be a bit more prepared for Thursday. But that does depend a little bit on the schedule this week. I can try to do that. Randy, I know that, all of us have had the same amount of time with these documents. Do you have any questions that pop out at you right now?
I think the top of my head blew off at some point, but other than that, I wonder, okay, there's a couple things I wonder related to all this. At what point, and this is not related to the audit itself, but at what point do this problem, which is going to be ongoing now, this issue rather, does this lower our credit rating? Has it already? I mean, if we don't have that information handy right now, whenever we could find that out, but I'm interested in that because I assume that this precludes us from any large borrowing of money, as far as borrowing from a bank or floating a bond, which directly affects, to me, this discussion we're having internally about going back to City Hall right away, because there's millions of dollars that are going to have to be found to re-inhabit that place. So in any case, that's an important thing to me today that's relevant to some of the things we're looking at. These unknowables that we don't know what we don't know, which I understand that. What happens if we can't find out that somehow it's impossible to reconcile some of these things? Is there a way in the accounting world where we can move beyond this without having details that are pertinent?
Yeah. So our game plan and kind of goal is, as I said, With Tracy being in there, we were hoping 22, but just because the beginning of 22 was still unknown, I think we're going to push it to the 23 financial statements. She was there the entire year of 23, and has done a tremendous amount of cleanup. So with that being said, we should have a better picture. There's still going to be some unknowns, and hopefully in the next 3 months a lot of these things can be resolved, but the goal is to get us at least out of a disclaimer of an opinion, and hopefully push into whether we need to issue a qualified opinion, whether we need to, scope out certain things. Those are the types of things. Again, we're not going to know until we get after the year end and kind of see what these next 3 months look like. But, our goal is to, nobody wants to be in this situation forever. But, we kind of talked through, what could 2020 look like? Still, probably there's too much. There's too much that, of cleanup that happened in 21 also. So hopefully 23 will be a better picture. I know that as Tracy has gone through the information, she has really been trying to not just focus on 19, but also the other years. So, the first year is always the hardest, takes the longest. So hopefully we can, then we'll start to work on 20 next, and then we'll try to, we'll start. So it will be a process of trying to get you caught up. As far as bond ratings or going out for new debt, that's really a question probably for your FA.
Okay, so that makes sense. You're talking about taking the defined area year that we know about, and then kind of backfilling, working our way backwards. And
correct. I know there'll still be some questions, and we'll have to figure things out. Like off the top of my head, capital assets seems to be a question. Who owns what assets? So, but again, potentially we could scoop that out and say, have a qualified opinion of, well, we know your cash is right. We know certain components are right. We're still not sure about capital assets. We're still not sure about certain components of things.
And Tracy, you may have talked to us about this before and described it, and I just forgot, but it helps me to hear it again in any case, so that we can move ahead then. So I'm going to take time to read through everything, and then, but that's all I have for now. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. I think I would ask something somewhat on the same line. So we're obviously not then anticipating including any sort of a basic auditing of RVT's financial statements in the budget years. I think it's 2020 and 21, where RVT was still a bit of component unit of the city. Is that correct, Tracy?
That's correct. And then that's the other reason for starting in 23, because RVT isn't part of the city for all of 23. So there's no kind of issue with not including them at that point.
Okay. Got it. And then, but I guess partly what Randy's asking, I'm guessing, is that there's obvious financial uncertainty, within a bunch of the years prior. Is there a way in which we actually make that go away? Or do we simply say, we know how much money we had at the start of 2023, we know how much money we have at the end of 2023, this is what we're doing moving forward?
Yeah, so I think we should be able to get numbers pretty solid for 2023, with the exception of just these few things that Kim referred to. Capital assets might still be a question. The other one is kind of what's known as like this contingent liability hanging out there, that there's, the feds and state might come back and say they want a lot of money back. And so ZA, rightfully so, would qualify for contingent liabilities, that they're not aware, they can't quantify what's out there and the city might be liable for. So if we can get down to those two items, the audit looks tremendously better than this one does. So that's our goal.
Got it. And I think, right. And we all understand that those are potential items still hanging out there, and we don't have any idea when any of that will get resolved, correct? We haven't heard from the state or the feds about either assets or liabilities being resolved anytime soon?
I did hear from FTA on as far as the potential transfer of any transit assets. They're hoping to have that ready to go by the end of this year, end of 2023, to get something to city council for review, and of course RBTA for any assets that may need to be transferred to the authority, and then any assets that might stay with the city. So I did ask that a few weeks ago, and they responded and said that their goal is by 2023.
Okay, got it. And then next question from the limited amount of this that I've been able to review so far, well, a handful of things. I'm assuming that how long is this a draft audit? And explain to me what the process is for making it a non-draft audit. Is it a non-draft audit only when we've completed the other audits that we need to get up to 2023?
No, we wanted you to have a chance to look at it, and then we are hoping to go final probably Friday or early next week.
Okay, got it.
If there's significant changes that you say, if you read through the financial statements and you say this is completely wrong, then we'll talk about it and we can,
Got it. Well, I guess what I'm implying is that I might prefer to have more than 2 days to review it before I say that with any certainty. So I might prefer to wait for another 2 weeks and perhaps have another opportunity to ask questions if we come up with any in the beginning of October there. Because I don't know that I'm going to feel comfortable to review all this information. And Eric was not with the city in 2019, correct, Eric? But Randy and I both were, and I was the chair of the finance committee back then as well. So I have perhaps some level of an ability to evaluate this information. Not much, but some. I would like time to review it adequately, and I don't know that I will have that between now and Thursday. But Randy, I don't know, do you feel like that as well? Or do you think that you can look it over to the best of your ability by then?
No, I think your point's well taken with probably for all of us on council.
Yeah. All right. But the one question I did have was actually in your single audit report. I was expecting a finding related to RVT, but there's a finding related to community development. Can you explain that to me?
So because we scoped out RVT, that's not considered a major
Right.
program. And so once we reevaluate your CEPA, and CDBG was your major program, and that's why you received a finding over it.
Okay, but what was it about CDBG that you felt was inadequately controlled? That's the one. I guess I'm just surprised by that, because I felt as though the management in that department was actually relatively adequate in 2019.
It goes to all the internal controls over the whole city as well. And when you look at that finding, it is for the city as well as the city financials in general, as well as that program.
Okay, so there wasn't really an issue within community development. It's more about the fact that the city didn't have an adequate oversight of any of our financials in 2019.
Yeah, I'm unable to tell you that because of the documentation, whether there was or was not specific to CDBG.
Okay,
because the internal controls are the same for the whole city.
Got it. Okay, but so Tracy, my understanding had always been that CDBG more or less was keeping a lot of their own books. Is that not an accurate statement for 2019?
That is not accurate. Everything goes through the city's financial system. Like, they may have somebody else approving a transaction that would be a general fund transaction, but it's all going through the city's internal control.
Okay. So they are not, I guess, out on their own. So the fact that for instance, have always met HUD qualifications, yada, 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 does not mean in any way that, right. And there's no auditing happening through that body. Okay. Do we believe that there were deficiencies within the community development department at that time, or is it simply a reflection of the fact that our finance office was not to its highest capacity?
I can tell you that I ran into a $500,000 error within the past couple of weeks that occurred. So I would say, and it's not finding or losing money, it's just how something was recorded, so don't panic. But it's like there are errors that occurred within community development that I have discovered along the way of preparing 2021 and 22. So those controls apply to every transaction of the city that go through controls.
Got it. Okay. And all of those controls are currently located with, I mean, obviously there's the city controller as well, but all of those initial controls are coming at this point through the city's finance office.
Can you rephrase the question? What is the question?
I guess what I'm saying is there is no real internal control happening within any independent city department over financial decisions. All of that control should be being exerted by the city's finance office. Is that accurate or not? Okay.
No, internal control extends to every department. So transactions are initiated at a department level, approved at a department level, in some cases approved at a higher level in other cases, and then come through the finance department. So there's controls all along the way.
Okay. I guess what I'm saying is how do we feel that we've improved those controls, and how are they functioning now that they weren't in 2019?
Perfect. Okay. For 2023, actually, when Jamie started in April, I had her go back and go through every single disbursement of the city and make sure that we followed the procurement policy that was put in place even retroactively. So we went back and looked at all those transactions going through 2023 to make sure we had our ducks in a row for the current year. So does that answer better?
Somewhat. And so then we're expecting all the departments are abiding by the procurement policy. I guess what I'm asking is if we're catching an error, is there anyone who in the final analysis is truly tasked with catching that error? Do you know what I mean?
Well, I was finding the error as I was preparing audit work papers for 20 and 21 and 22. So I'm catching those things as we move forward to make sure our beginning balances for 23 are solid.
Right. But I'm saying moving forward from 2023, ideally we have a number of different places where financial errors are being caught before they make it into anything that gets booked into our books.
Well, yeah, correct. And after, because we're reporting out to each department every month with detailed transactions so that if they have any questions on what's going through their department, they're seeing it right away and are able to ask questions. We're providing you guys quarterly statements for you to look at. So we're trying to not only do the detail internal control, but the overall internal control.
Okay, good.
So you as a finance committee are then serving as a part of that control structure.
Right. I guess the main reason that I'm asking all these questions is that I'm not entirely understanding that these processes are any different than the processes we had in place in 2019. I simply have the sense that we weren't following them. Is that accurate, or have we implemented anything new that wasn't the way that things were theoretically happening in 2019?
So I had a procurement policy written and adopted by the city. So everyone is now using a standard procurement policy. From what I gather, speaking to others, there may have been a policy or maybe not, and people might be following it and maybe not. So that's why I tried to solidify that and make sure, and again, go back and make sure that everybody's really following it to the T. So I think there could have been approvals that may not have been appropriate during 19 and 20 of certain transactions. There were some things that were not approved by city council that were signed off by management that may not have been appropriate. Those kind of things during 19.
Yeah, no, I am not disputing any of that. That's not, all I am asking is, how do we prevent that from happening again? That's what I'm asking.
Right. So I think because we've put these
policies in place, but I don't know. I don't know what happened, but it seems as though somehow those things were not functioning in the city for a while, and now we've kind of recommitted to them. Yes, but it doesn't seem to me. I guess I'm not hearing that there's anything that we can do from a sort of overarching perspective, it just has to be ideally hoping for diligence and honesty on the part of all department heads and within every department. Is that correct?
Well, there should be checks and balances, right? So the finance department is checking on the department heads. The reporting out to the departments is checking back on finance so that things aren't happening, changed at finance that the departments don't know. We're reporting to council and to the department so that there's monitoring at a higher level. And I think like listening to some of the conversations that I had heard in the past at the council level, there were questions that were asked of the administration where you didn't get answers. And really, I mean, demanding those answers, because as a financial oversight, that's important. So I can't speak to the past and why you got answers or didn't get answers, but I think you're getting information now, and asking good questions is the way to go.
Right. Okay. Yeah, just sort of trying to, I guess, figure out where we went wrong previously and figure out ways that we can make certain that we don't. I might suggest to the administration as well as to council, Randy and Eric, I don't know what you think about this, but there certainly was never any sort of real training in place for council members on how to interpret finances, how to interpret audits. Eric rightly points out that it is a pretty, just a long stack of numbers when you're looking at an audit that can be pretty penetrable. And that perhaps it should be a part of training for new council members. I would say any new elected officials, sort of basic audit procedures, basic financial procedures within the city. That would be my suggestion, right? Because I think otherwise the learning curve is pretty steep. And I think that part of what you're seeing when you're seeing people either asking questions and not getting answers, or asking questions and getting inaccurate answers and not knowing the difference, is a lack of education, right? And I know for me, certainly that learning curve was pretty steep, and I have always been judged to be reasonably good with numbers. So, like that, that might be worth our while. I don't know what that looks like. I'll talk to Adam about it as the president of the council as well, but you seem like you might have more insight into a way in which we could implement a training program like that than any of us would. So if you know of anything, I think it would be extremely helpful to try and add that into the roster of sort of training stuff.
And Pennsylvania Municipal League has a newly elected officials training that includes financial training. So that is an avenue for council to get educated.
Got it. Mackie, did you do that?
Yes, yeah, I did. I did go to that. It was 2 days, if I remember correctly. It was a lot of information to take in, for sure. But yes, Liz, I agree that specifically regarding this issue, I think just some sort of half-day kind of overview training would definitely be helpful for many of us. So going into the next 4 years.
Right. Okay. All right. Then I think for right now, given my given that I haven't really been able to fully review this audit, I think that's all the questions that I have. Randy, Eric, did it bring up anything else for you that you'd like to understand better?
No.
At the moment, no, not for myself, from the auditors specifically.
Okay. Just to be clear, someone from the auditors will also be there on Thursday, correct? I don't know
Yes.
if it's Justin or Kim, but okay. All right. Then yeah.
And Liz, to clarify, are you do want them at this Thursday's meeting, or you want them at the following Thursday?
I mean, you guys tell me. I would like more time to review this than these couple of days are going to give me. But that doesn't mean that I probably won't have further questions on Thursday. And I would feel perhaps slightly guilty for the finance committee having, gotten to ask some basic questions about the audit, and then everyone else having to wait for 2.5 weeks, and just kind of, especially because, let me see here, Adam, John, and Vince are all in the position of never having officially seen a city audit, correct? As well as Eric. So that is to say that there is a learning curve on it. you know, and three of the people who are not on the finance committee are part of what needs to be that learning curve on how one reads an audit. So I guess, Kim, if you are coming to the Thursday meeting, if you could, I know this is asking a lot of somebody who's been doing this her whole freaking life. But if between you and Tracy, we could try and work out some sort of very basic explanation of, okay, these are the numbers that you see here. These are the numbers that you see there. This is what it should correspond to within your audit. And then I haven't had time to look at those numbers, but perhaps a review of what this tells us, if anything, about our financial position entering 2019 and leaving 2019. If we had more, if we believe that we had more money at the end of 2019 than we had when we went into it, if we believe we had less. Okay. Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Right.
Do you want, is that something that you would like, would you like that offline? Would you like just to have a conversation at some point and we can kind of go through it?
Up to you guys. I am not, I mean, so John Mackey, you are one of the people I am thinking of when I'm talking about people who have actually never seen a municipal audit before. Would you like some sort of very basic training in how to read an audit? Perhaps to Kim's point, not in the midst of a public meeting on Thursday.
That was my point.
No, yeah, I don't think doing something like that in a public meeting is necessary. But yes, I think myself, I won't speak for Eric or, Adam, Vince, really a majority of council, I think could use maybe just a quick hour, maybe for 30-minute hour session at some point. And if Zellenkos, you're already scheduled to be at the meeting on Thursday. So yes, I think they should still be there on Thursday. And I don't see any reason why. Again, I don't want to speak for anyone at the auditors there that they could not also be there again in 2 weeks on the 10th would be my hope.
I think I'll apologize for this, guys, but you're dealing with it with, a crop of council people that hasn't really reviewed an audit, B, a complete kind of wholesale change, even for me, in the way that our audits look, because we've removed one of the financial elements. And because these presumably are more accurate than the audits that we were looking at in 2018, the last time I reviewed one. So, part of what I would like to be able to do is go back, dig up that 2018 audit and review it against this and just sort of understand the differences and what I should be looking for moving forward. But yeah, then one of the overarching questions, and Tracy, this is a conversation you and I can have off to one side at some point too. But an audit accomplishes a number of things, but one of the things it theoretically tells us is that the financial position that we believe ourselves to be in is in fact the financial position that we are in. And so one of the benefits historically of the audit in to my way of thinking was that we would know, for instance, that we had, taken in more revenue than we anticipated. Not that we can't learn that from our basic financial statements, but that we would sort of have confirmed it, I guess, through the audit. So one of the things that has been missing for all of us over the last several years is a sense of what our balance sheet is doing. We know what we're spending on a year-over-year basis. We don't necessarily know by the end of the year, because we haven't been receiving even financial statements, whether we are in a slightly better or a slightly worse financial position than we expected to be. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think that's a basic bit of knowledge that I wouldn't mind achieving as well, to the extent that we can achieve that. But that's off to one side of the auditing process. That's just an ask as someone who's trying to figure out where we stand as a city. The one other question that I would have that does not necessarily relate to the audit, but it might actually be a question for you, Kim, I'm not sure. I know that assuming that the city can move forward with any sort of borrowing, and I don't know that we can, I believe that we do have a debt ceiling of sorts. What is that?
Your debt ceiling is based on the total revenues average of the past 3 years. So that's a calculation that would have to be done to be able to give you that number.
Could you get it to me?
By the end of the week?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. It's not an absolutely pressing thing, but I am curious to know. I mean, I know that, and I guess the other question that needs to go along with that is how much actual debt do we currently have? Good
Okay,
luck on
so mhm,
that.
I can get that. Are you looking for it for Thursday night, or you're looking just in general for the near future?
It would certainly be helpful for Thursday, but if it can't be accomplished for Thursday, then in the near future would, will
Okay.
do. But I do think that's information that it would be useful for us to have access to as part of Thursday's discussion if possible. Okay. All right. Thank you, Tracy. All right. If nobody else has anything to pontificate about, not that anybody else has been pontificating, I think that would be exclusively me. Then should we move on to item number 2?
Okay, so I just want to be clear. So Thursday night, we'll be there and you would tell us what you would like us to go over, the high level financials or?
I think, Kim, depending on your availability, if you're proposing that you'd be willing to maybe discuss that offline as more of a just sort of a training / basic heads up for council members, then maybe we could try to schedule that as some sort of a, not necessarily an executive session, but like a training sometime in the next couple of weeks for members of
That's
council.
fine. Yeah,
And
that's
then
fine.
Thursday, it would just be, say, if you could be available remotely to answer questions, related specifically to the audit. But be aware that you may be getting questions from people who have not seen an audit before, and so that some of that actually might need to happen then. Okay.
Yeah.
Guys, does that sound like an accurate description of what we're after?
Yes.
Okay. I'll communicate
Yeah.
that then to Adam Yoder, to the full body of council and make an effort, Kim, to figure out some times on our end when a training like that might be useful. If you could perhaps email Tracy or email me or whoever, just to let us know what your availability might look like to do that, I would appreciate it. Okay.
All right. So this Thursday remotely, and then
Yep.
in 2 weeks, finance committee again.
No, you wouldn't need to be in front of the finance committee. I think it would just be the full body of council, probably. So that
Okay,
everybody,
in 2 weeks. So on the 14th.
yeah. 14th? I don't think it's the 14th.
Or is that the 14th?
Is
Sorry.
it the 12th maybe? Hang on a sec. I'm not
Yeah,
sure what
it's the 12th. Yeah, the 12th.
Sorry, the 12th. Sorry about that.
Yeah. But yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything else to add on this rather exhaustive issue, guys?
I want to clarify, Liz, do you want that time with Kim, that hour or whatever that is, prior to the 12th?
I think that would be ideal if it's possible. Sorry, I'm having some phone charging difficulties. I think
Okay.
if it's possible, I think that would be ideal. But schedules are schedules, and while I probably will also try to sit in, it's not actually even as much myself that I'm thinking of as it is a bunch of other people who really haven't dealt with the audits at all. So I think it's more important that we try to scoop up those people. But it may be difficult to work out a time that will suit everybody. And I'm assuming that Kim would prefer it be during the day, obviously, because I would assume would suit her schedule better. So anyway, we'll try to sort it out. Maybe we can do some sort of a big, like a doodle poll or something like that, Tracy, to try and get it.
I'll have Janice coordinate with everyone.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. What else? What other loose end did I forget to tie up? Anything else out there? All right. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for bearing with us as we learn how to look at audits again. Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 2. Let me go ahead and pull that agenda back up. Oh, shoot. All right. Resolution authorizing an agreement of sale for City Hall between the City of Williamsport and J-Boss Realty.
You're muted, Liz, I'm not sure if you were finished or not.
Great. Sorry, guys. I said thanks to Kim and Justin for joining us. And Chris, I see Chris and John Basiliga there. So, all right, moving on to item number 2, Mayor Slaughter.
That's what you have before you is a resolution for City Hall, for the sale of City Hall. I don't think this is anything new. Of course, we've been talking about this for a long time now. We do have Mr. Basilega, Mr. Doherty here with us to speak. I know some of the questions were, what do they plan to do with it, timelines, et cetera. And of course, those two can speak to that, answer questions that you all may have on their thoughts and ideas related to City Hall. So I
Great.
will turn it back over to you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. All right, then we're going to go in the conventional order this time. Eric Biter, would you like to start things off?
No, I think we've exhausted this issue as far as questions are concerned. We appreciate that JBAS has been as receptive to the delay as they have been. The only thing that I will stress from the mayor, which we've talked about before, is that I would hope that you have some sort of vision for the future as far as what our home is going to be and how we can easily consolidate government services for community members to better reach us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. Randy?
No, I don't have any questions. Although I've been asked a couple times, and you may have covered this before, Chris or John, about parking for that facility. Could you just briefly go through the thoughts on that?
John?
Randy, you asked about the parking, correct?
Yeah, I've been asked about it, and I really didn't have, the details. And you may have shared them before, and I wasn't able to draw them out if I did have them. So I just wanted to cover that again.
Yeah, I think, Randy, a mix between, what's available on the site and then what's available to the city, a combination of those both would be adequate to the yield of apartments I'll get out of the building. So that's kind of what we're doing. Try to give everybody at least one spot very close to the building. And then if they needed another car, whatever, be in a city garage or lot. But Randy, I wanted to add to this and to everybody on council and the mayor, I understand the concerns of the citizens of Williamsport. They have pride in the city and that certainly that building. But in my opinion, the worst use for that property is government usage. It's a place where people go to pay fines, they pay taxes. It's not really adding any value or amenities to the downtown. It's dark after 4 or 5 o'clock at night, and there's really no life to it. And it's not as if I'm picking the building up and moving it out of town. It's still your landmark and still serves as a prideful piece of property for the city. But when I'm done with it, it'll be in a much better form. My use will actually make it a community asset, a building that will have action, life, and enjoyment 24/7 instead of a dull, dark government building. We'll have lights on the outside. We'll have events outside. It's right as I'm looking at it now, a mixed use, but the people living there all the time. When you go by at nighttime where it's dark now, it'll be lit up. It'll be colorful. There'll be exterior lights on the building. And the other thing is that it'll be back on the tax rolls. Help me to continue to help revitalize your downtown. No matter what your budget or financials are, if you don't have a use for the property, why hold on to it? Let my company come in and make it back into the great asset it could be again for the city. And I know you guys are in a difficult spot because you're getting pushback from the citizens, and I totally get that, but it's going to be better than it's ever been. And again, like I started my conversation here, the worst possible use for a building that's that beautiful is to use it for a government purpose. So just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Excellent. We appreciate that point, John, and it's well taken. It is a block that has the potential that, a street corner that has the potential to sort of be an epicenter of life in town. And I think you're right that it has not historically really lived up to that as a municipal building. John, just refresh my memory, how many apartments are you planning? Do you think you can put in that space?
Yeah, I'm thinking on the square foot, and roughly around 25.
Okay, that was that. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't. I read all the documentation. I couldn't remember. And then you were leaving. You were planning to leave most of the ground floor for another use, correct? Retail or something along those lines.
Yeah, I would love to get a little coffee shop or sandwich shop in there, something like that. But I would have community space, for the residents and for the public if they came in. One of the things I do with all my buildings is I really do a lot with amenities. I try to keep the culture of the building together. And, I just think when somebody's looking at a property to live in, they want a gym, they want a common area, they want an area to do gatherings, even inside and outside and stuff like that. So yes, I will keep some space set aside for that.
Okay.
I don't know if there's if there's any areas where there might be even a little section of a flatter roof. It could be some kind of rooftop on it. I thought there was a section on the one side, but things like that I do on my properties.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, yeah, it's certainly a really neat project that you've proposed, and a proposal that we're fortunate to have in hand. So that's exciting. All right. However, if I don't hear any other questions, I guess we can leave the hullabaloo to the full body of council on Thursday. Eric, how do you feel about that?
I just say, like, from my point, when I heard all the citizens get up and talk, and everybody was like, they don't want to lose the building. And I kept hearing that over and over and over again, and presented the way that I just said. And I apologize. I wasn't really prepared at the time when I was there, but when you say it like this, you're not losing anything. It's actually going to be better than it's ever been. And it'll be more theirs now than it ever was before. And I think with that argument to what they said, I don't see how anybody wouldn't want that. I'm not sitting here looking for government money or handouts or anything like that. I just want to get down and make that building beautiful, and I have a commitment to the city already. And, for me to have two instead of one, it's with the economies of scale, it's better for me. I could, maybe hire a person or two to help doing the property management, whereas one building I'd be subcontracting out. So to me, it has benefits not only to the city itself, but to our cost.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. I would actually recommend, and I would assume that you perhaps are planning to do this to discuss it on Thursday, John, to present a little bit your proposal on Thursday night. I think that might not be a bad idea. I would also emphasize that I think the debate that is currently going on both amongst council members and within the community is not so much about your proposal specifically. Is about the question of a permanent home for the city administration and city government, and one that reflects our city's values. So don't take this personally, John, I guess is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I learned to grow a thick skin through the business, so
Yeah,
I'm good.
But Derek, I don't know what your plan is for the presentation on Thursday, and I don't know, John and Chris, if you're planning to be up and in town on Thursday. But if you were planning to attend, or even if you were planning to attend virtually, it might not be unwise for John to talk a little bit about his plans for the structure.
I agree.
Okay.
Do you think there'll be a vote Thursday, or is it not sure yet?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't think, I honestly think you would have to have a crystal ball to answer that question right now, John. And I'm sorry to say that. But I think there's still a number of things up in the air. I'm not by any stretch encouraging you to come down if it wasn't already in your plans. But if you wanted to tune in remotely or something like that, I think you could still have an opportunity to speak, although you wouldn't be visible. But you could. I'll leave that up to you guys to determine. Yeah, I think there's still just been a lot of discussion amongst members of council, so I'm not really sure where we stand there.
Okay.
But all of us are excited to put this behind us. I think we can safely say that, right, guys?
Yes,
Yes.
a hearty yes.
Right. So there's that. Anyway, okay. If I hear no further questions on this item at the moment, then we will move. Do I hear any further questions?
Not from me.
All right, excellent.
Nor I.
I want
Um,
to thank, I have to jump off the call. This is John Basley, but I want to thank everybody for their time and the opportunity, and look forward to talking to everybody real soon.
Excellent. Thank you, John. We appreciate you
Thanks,
coming.
John.
Thank you, John.
Let's
Thank
talk
you,
about.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
All right, we have two more items on the agenda. Item number 3, Molly, a resolution related to the minimum municipal obligation for the year 2024. Ms. Steel Shrimp, are you still out there? My goodness, we talked about it for so long, we lost people.
I
Ms.
don't see,
Mealy. Ms. Mealy, we've had a couple issues over here, so they might be trying to rejoin. I know I got booted for about 30, 45 seconds, somewhere in there.
Got it. Tracy,
Liz, I can take it generally. I don't have, I apologize because I don't have documents in front of me, but I'll give it a shot. So every year, the actuaries determine what your minimum municipal obligation is for the following year and or for the subsequent year, and council needs to approve those calculations and the amount that is to be funded into the pension plan. And that's what you have before you today.
Yeah. And Tracy, I don't suppose you're in a position to discuss the fact that it's slightly lower than last year and what generated that, correct? What
It
happened?
would, again, I don't have anything in front of me. My guess would be that RVT is off of it.
No, it's only slightly lower. It's related in some way here to the fire pension fund. Both police and O&E ticked up a little bit, but fire pensions dropped back, and I'm not sure why.
I apologize. That's it. It goes to the actuary and they do the calculations. I can certainly have that answer for you on Thursday.
Got it. We can, I mean, yeah, I don't, there's not, you know, with the exception of the this grandstanding related to the idea that if we'd fully funded these pensions back when, we wouldn't necessarily be putting out $4.3 million annually to meet our obligations to past employees. Then you know, the MMO generally is what it is. Tracy, you don't happen to know? We're using the actuarial results from 2021, so in 2025 is the first time we'll see 2023's actuarial results, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And how was January? January 23 was looking better than January 21, correct?
Again,
Yep.
I'd have to go back and look. It's been a long time since January of 21.
Who recollects? It seems to me the financial position in January 21, or that the stock market in January 21 was not particularly
right.
so. We should anticipate, I would think, that when the 2023 valuations come in, that we would be looking slightly better for the MMO. But anyway, we can discuss that on Thursday. That's no big thing. Guys, do you have any other questions related to this?
I don't.
I do not.
Okay. Then we'll just have a look at it on Thursday, Tracy. I think, you know, it's a fairly cut and dried thing. And we have the benefit of, oh, wait, Molly's here. Molly, anything else you want to tell us?
No, I was going to say I can look into why that fire pension fund amount reduced. My suspicion, though, is that we had several firefighters enter the drop and or retire.
Correct.
So
Correct.
their salaries were not included in the calculation then.
That was really good. That is correct. I think there were 6. I think Molly, you can correct me. There were 6 people that went into the drop and came off of that calculation between the time periods.
Yep, that sounds about right.
Okay, then yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking, but just trying to verify that. So, all right. Then that would be the kind of modest drop. And I guess we'll wait. Yeah, if anyone wants to look into what's likely to be the result of the 2023 valuation, I suppose that might help us to sort of look toward 2025. But with the exception of that, I don't have any major concerns about the MMO. Eric and Randy, does the fact that Molly's here change any of your questions?
Nope.
Not for me. Nope.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to item number 4 on our agenda, which is any related items. I feel as though somehow we've covered the full width and breadth of the city finances this particular meeting, but does anybody have any other items to introduce? Can I go to the order?
I don't.
All right. Then I will, I guess, take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thanks very much, guys. And
Thank
I
you.
will see you Thursday. Who was bringing the bourbon again? Mackie, was that you? All right,
It's
thanks,
already
guys.
gone.
Yeah, exactly. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Going out shopping.
Yeah, exactly. See ya.
Take care, everyone.